A couple of months back, I released an in-depth analysis of Milo Murphy's Law, and broke down several reasons why Phineas and Ferb's successor failed to connect with audiences. However, due to the fact that I dropped cyan drop shadows, camera shakes, and 3D spin effects on every clip on the timeline in what I thought was an attempt to combat copyright, my computer became so insanely slow that I had to cut out a major section of the video in order to make the show's 5th anniversary. I wasn't too concerned, because I thought the video would get 1,000 views at most, maybe a year from now. However, Jonathan from the Second Dimension promoted it, and 80,000 people decided to pull what this commenter called a pro gamer move. Thanks. So,
we're gonna do it again!
Let's talk about how Milo Murphy's Law's big crossover episode, The Phineas and Ferb Effect, completely breaks every facet of Phineas and Ferb's continuity, and more importantly, how it retroactively destroys several episodes, including the emotional core of PNF's greatest episode, Summer Belongs to You. Just a necessary reminder that I am a fan of Milo Murphy's Law overall, and I wish no ill will towards any of the show's staff or writers. These are simply some thoughts that I've had in my head for a while that I would like to splatter against the ethereal wall that is the internet. So let's crack MML wide open and slither on in. The Phineas and Ferb Effect was the first episode of Milo Murphy's Law Season 2, and it served as the conclusion to the show's first major storyline. In the first season finale, Fungus, sentient pistachio monsters had enslaved all of Danville. Why? Time travel, just time travel stuff. With his friends and family captured, Milo and his time traveler friends' only option was to find the man who would go on to invent time travel, referred to in the future as Professor Time, referred to in the present as Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. So, Dr. Doofenshmirtz is the inventor of time travel. Yeah? Wreck-It Doof 2. Doof breaks the timeline.
And this is one of our most curious pieces, a time machine made by a 19th century scientist named Xavier Onassis.
Great Bertha's bloomers! I've done it! I, Professor Onassis, have invented a time machine! Excuse me, future female of the species, have corn dogs been invented yet?
Yes.
Hot dog, I'm staying!
Xavier Onassis is a 19th century scientist who invented the time machine that we see throughout the series. So, alright, let's say Xavier Onassis only invented the time machine, not time travel itself. After Doofenshmirtz invents time travel, then some other time traveler in the future travels back to the 19th century and tells Xavier Onassis how to build a time machine. Cool, done. Continuity patched. Doofenshmirtz still gonna invent time travel, everything's goofy and good. Wrong. Because Doofenshmirtz invented a time machine in Phineas and Ferb. In the Season 3 episode Lots of Latkes, he builds a
historical army retrievinator!
which pulls the Mongol army from centuries in the past into the future. At the episode's end, the machine is fired in reverse, teleporting Doofenshmirtz back to the Mongol times. This is the final scene of that episode.
This is it. No one has seen this for 1,000 years. The legend tells of an epic battle between the Mongol army and potato gremlin creatures, while a pharmacist from the future worked in vain to return to his time, crying out, "Curse you, Perry the platypus!" I swear, I majored in this in college.
Doofenshmirtz's entire character arc in Milo Murphy's Law is that he's overwhelmed by the role he has to grow into in the future, and the timeline's expectations of him. But him inventing time travel isn't in the future, he legit already did it!
Don't let the timeline throw you!
At the end of the special, Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated gets destroyed.
My building! I crash on your couch.
It's worth noting that other people live in that building, but Phineas and Ferb itself forgot about that too, so I'll give them a pass. Doofenshmirtz lives in a shed in Milo's backyard for the duration of the show, despite the fact that his building is still around in every Phineas and Ferb episode where they go to the future. And you might be thinking, well, obviously he rebuilds it eventually, and to that I say, why isn't he rebuilding it now? This place got destroyed in every single episode of Phineas and Ferb, often far worse than this, so why was he able to fix it overnight 104 separate times during the summer, but he doesn't even consider rebuilding it during the fall? Speaking of fall, Doofenshmirtz was a teacher last we saw him. He was Vanessa's science teacher in the backdoor pilot Doof 101. He was also an Alka agent in the other backdoor pilot, Alka Files. What happened there?
We've all wondered the placement of Doof's story in Milo Murphy's Law, Alka Files, and Doof 101. Are they separate timelines? Is there a consistent timeline?
It's that first summer, he goes good at the end of it, becomes a science teacher for a couple weeks, maybe a month, gets fired for some horrible thing that happens there, goes and works at Alka. That doesn't work out.
Oh yeah, people always wondered, is the Christmas special, is that like a relapse?
He becomes evil again by Christmas. He gives that up again and decides to create time travel. By the time the Milo Murphy crossover happens, he's just sort of hanging out.
That is a complicated profession.
Now, I know this isn't Milo Murphy's Law's fault, but the notion of Doofenshmirtz completely relapsing as soon as 4 months after the end of the summer just makes me really sad. I understand that relapses are realistic and often happen, but since when has Phineas and Ferb ever been realistic in any capacity? Why start by stripping away all that character growth he went through in the final episode?
Oh, come on, Dad. You build them just to exact petty revenge trying to prove you're evil.
What? I'm evil? I am evil!
No, Dad. You're basically a nice guy who's pretending to be evil. And, you know, it seems like it's all out of obligation to your backstories, not something that truly comes from your heart.
Wow.
Okay, alright, Doofy Boy got fired. I can live with that, because I never really cared about either of those backdoor pilots in the first place. But what about Vanessa and Carl? In Last Day of Summer, Carl has gone back to school, leaving Major Monogram all alone.
It's just that with Carl heading to school soon, I'm gonna have to learn to run this place all by myself. Carl! Oh, that's right. School. Keep it together, Francis.
However, Vanessa has joined Alka as an intern when the series ends. This was literally the conclusion to her character arc of the whole show.
Dad, I got an internship at Alka, so I have to move out.
What? But that's the opposite of what they're the good...
Dad, look. This Alka internship is something I really want to do. And I don't think this lifestyle choice is making you happy either, is it?
Wow again.
You can't forget about this! But they did! Carl's just casually back, and Vanessa joining the OWCA simply isn't mentioned. They could have told a story exploring Vanessa's work at the agency, maybe helping Perry on a mission, but instead they decided to ignore the storytelling opportunity entirely and have her show up for 50 seconds, say a line that any other character could have said, and then waddle away, leaving the show forever. So much else is odd, continuity-wise. The following are things that don't actually matter, but it's funny to talk about them. Milo Murphy's Law firmly takes place in the fall of 2016 and beyond, which means that Phineas and Ferb's summer canonically takes place in 2016 as well, despite the fact that the characters have flip phones and no 2016 looking technology. The only conclusion I can come to is that an entire industrial revolution occurred between summer and fall of 2016 in the Dwampyverse. Doofenshmirtz says that he has no idea where this disembodied jingle comes from, despite the fact that it's literally a song he wrote himself and hired a band to sing.
Doofenshmirtz Good Incorporated.
I have no idea where that comes from. Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated, where being evil is not debate. You know what? I should really write the rest of that someday. Okay, guys, take it from the top. Louder.
A 1, 2.
Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated.
Candace doesn't even want to bust the boys here? Linda and Lawrence, they saw a pistachio on Takeover and they're just chilling? Okay. Doofenshmirtz claims to not know where Perry lives, despite the fact that the Alka Files takes place before this.
Well, you just live off the land like a vagabond, moving from one planet place to another. I don't really know where you live. Isn't this great?
The further we go into the continuity bugs, the more obscure and trivial they get. At the end of the day, little inconsistencies like this don't make or break a story. We ain't CinemaSins here at the Key and Carlisle YouTube channel. Stories are about characters and choices, as I will reiterate later. So as long as those plot holes, plot dents, plot schisms don't affect the journey of the characters, we should be fine. But there's one major glaring flaw. Positive and negative probability ions? In the Phineas and Ferb effect, Milo eventually joins up with the Phineas and Ferb gang, and after analyzing Milo, they determine that Murphy's Law is actually just negative probability ions, which surround his person and cause everything to go wrong. Phineas and Ferb, meanwhile, have everything go perfectly for them, and that is only because of positive probability ions.
If my calculations are correct, the force of Murphy's Law is in direct opposition to what I would now like to call the Phineas and Ferb effect.
Roll credits.
Phineas and Ferb have an effect on probabilities like Milo?
Exactly! Just like Milo, their presence in a location seems to skew energy fields, affecting probability.
Milo toward things going wrong.
And Phineas and Ferb towards everything working out.
This is just Metachlorians again.
Metachlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells.
Why don't the negative probability ions function in the same way as the positive ones? When Milo steps near a building, it falls apart. When Phineas and Ferb step onto a construction site, shouldn't the building theoretically just construct itself? Why are negative ions proactive, but the positive ones are solely defensive and preventative?
Negative and positive probability ions cannot occupy the same space. So if we surround Milo with Phineas and Ferb, we can push the negative ions in a desired...
The notion that negative probability ions are the source of everything going wrong breaks and cheapens so many episodes of Phineas and Ferb. In Hawaiian Vacation Part 2, Candace seemingly finds a bad luck charm. Everything devolves into chaos around her. She's thrown down a waterfall, attacked by bats, everything. There's a whole song about it.
Bad luck, bad luck, bad luck, bad luck, bad luck, bad luck.
Every time she thinks she got rid of it, it seemingly comes back. But the punchline of the episode is that these are just mass-produced plastic good luck charms that have not inconvenienced anyone else.
That just means your table's ready. Let's see what other luck it brings you. Ah, looks like someone's getting a free dessert, huh?
Which means that all of the bad luck was just happening to Candace and had nothing to do with the Tiki Charms. If it's not the Tiki Charms, that implies that Candace has negative probability ions surrounding her. So the larger implication becomes that the only reason Candace doesn't succeed in Phineas and Ferb is because of a magical force of science keeping her down. Likewise, the crossover explicitly implies that Doofenshmirtz might have negative probability ions as well.
Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong near me usually will.
That's a law? I've had that my whole life.
This contradicts MML's premise that it's a genetic trait passed down solely by Murphy men. Apparently half of Danville has it. This implies that the only reason Doofenshmirtz fails in every episode of Phineas and Ferb, the reason his building consistently explodes, is because of microscopic particles, which feels wrong. In the Season 4 episode Just Our Luck, Doofenshmirtz builds a
Stinko-Krampinator!
and I'll just let him explain it.
I'll just have to tell you my evil plan subliminally, like when people listen to foreign language CDs in their sleep. I did that once, and now I can totally speak Portuguese to sleeping people. Luck is called Stinko-Krampin in Drusselstein, and I never seem to have any of the good kind. Turns out that every object has a positive or negative energy field. I harnessed that positive and negative energy and created the Stinko... You see, what I'll do is I'll zap myself with good luck, and then I'll go zap Roger with bad luck. Then I will ascend to become the mayor of Danville, and then I will rule the entire...
Doofenshmirtz hits himself with the Anator, which gives him incredible luck throughout the episode. Candace gets hit as well, and everything goes in her favor.
Hello? You're kidding. I won a random contest to sing backup for Love Handle at the Danville 24-Hour Music Awards? Sweet!
Quickly, I would like to point out that they actually did that 24-Hour Music Award episode later. They continue this plot thread into a later episode in the season, because Phineas and Ferb could never make up its mind if continuity was important or not. The ray also hits Phineas and Ferb, but has the opposite effect. everything devolves into chaos around them, in an almost surreal precursor to MML that came out 2.5 years earlier. This episode implies that Doofenshmirtz can casually invert the negative and positive probability ions using an innator that he built in a day, which in turn proactively destroys the premise of Milo Murphy's Law before the show even happened. This could have also served as the premise for a really fun episode where everyone has Murphy's Law except for Milo. But wait, in Just Our Luck, the positive ions are proactive, unlike how they're presented in the Phineas and Ferb effect, and the obvious reason for that is that when the team wrote Just Our Luck, they hadn't considered that everything Phineas and Ferb does is because of probability ions. It's a massive retcon that breaks the show.
Did you guys remember the Just Our Luck episode of Phineas and Ferb?
We sort of ignored that it happened writing a crossover, because it was like, we don't want to have to go into all the lore of Phineas and Ferb to explain why, well, we've never had bad luck, except for that one day in episode,
And that takes up screen time that you would otherwise
it's
use
like,
for stuff.
that was one day. They sort of forgot about it.
And Dan's probably right. Phineas and Ferb was an episodic comedy. Milo Murphy's Law had no obligation to fill every plot hole and explain every little inconsistency for a show where consistency didn't really matter in the first place. I can live with that. But there's one thing I can't. In the original MML video, I stated, I promise you there's nothing about this show that I hate or even passionately dislike. But if there's one thing about the show I come close to disliking with some sort of passion, it's this.
But there's gotta be a workaround for this Murphy's Law effect.
Well, what do you usually do when things go wrong?
We have no frame of reference for that.
Milo Murphy's Law implies that nothing has ever gone wrong in Phineas and Ferb's lives. A statement that completely destroys their best episode. Summer belongs to you. Annabella shippers were starving so hard back in the day that I'm surprised the UN didn't register it as a humanitarian crisis. In Phineas and Ferb, Summer Belongs to You, Phineas has taken a bet with Buford that the team can take advantage of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and fly around the entire Earth, chasing daylight, and make it back to the backyard before sunset. This isn't just a casual episode for Phineas. He has his entire worldview on the line. He believes that anything is possible if you put your mind to it and seize the day, and he's determined to prove it. But when the Sun Beater crashes onto an island, and the gang has no resources or equipment to find their way off the island, Phineas becomes desperate, and for the first time in the entire series, hopeless.
We could dig a tunnel under the ocean, and then we can't. I can't believe there's nothing we can do to get off of this. I guess at least we can sit and watch this beautiful sunset.
He's out of options and completely defeated. And with Isabella crying across the beach, it's a legitimately powerful and unexpected moment. Summer Belongs to You is one of the very few instances where Phineas and Ferb actually truly explores its characters and puts them in vulnerable positions, something that Milo Murphy's Law didn't truly do. Candace and Isabella had moments like that throughout the series, probably once or twice per season, but to have Phineas and Ferb broken down to their core essence like this, it was an incredible episode. I was watching this as some chubby 10-year-old and I was like, oh my god, bro, the triangle dude is struggling, what's he gonna do? But then Isabella gives him the inspiration needed to get them out of there. They're able to return to the backyard in the nick of time using the power of belief and some bicycles.
I believe! Get on the trike!
But now, 8 years later, Milo Murphy's Law is out here saying that Phineas had a force field of positive probability ions that would have pulled them out of the situation no matter what. It cheapens it. It waters it down. It says that they didn't even need to believe because of these scientific, possibly even genetic particles, which would drastically increase their likelihood to the point of almost guaranteeing their success in every single possible instance of something going wrong. It basically says that the emotions I felt as a little boy while watching that scene were uncalled for and invalid. And on top of that, it's gonna be hard to get invested in whatever struggles Phineas goes through in all future Phineas and Ferb media. For the most part, I'm able to compartmentalize a lot of this stuff. A long time ago, Alex Hirsch tweeted that stories are about characters and choices, not buggy continuity glitches. And that, to this day, is how I look at these things. Doofenshmirtz just forgot that he already invented time travel. Sure. But to tell me that this wasn't Phineas's intuition and persistence, but just microscopic good luck particles? That Phineas and Ferb would have returned to the first dimension and stopped Doofenshmirtz no matter what? That Phineas was never in danger of falling off this bridge? That in turn weakens every single powerful moment that Phineas and Ferb had over the course of its 8-year run. But Baljeet dabbing made it completely worth it. When I saw my MML video performing well, I was like, hey, YouTube's popping off! And I released a deep dive into Club Penguin's best party ever, Operation Blackout. And then no one watched it at all. I love YouTube's algorithm. So if you liked this, I'm sure you'll like that too. So check that out if you're interested. If I had known that the Milo Murphy's Law video would perform as well as it did, I would have brought up Transformers Animated, which is a show which features a character voiced by Weird Al who has a backpack that he can pull any item out of, and he has a happy-go-lucky personality. He's just Milo. He's just a precursor to Milo, but a Transformer, and he came out 9 years earlier.
I am Rekgar. I am only good for one thing. Garbage! I must deliver garbage to all!
If you like Milo Murphy's Law, I think you should at least watch this episode. His showcase episode is Season 2, Episode 4, Garbage In, Garbage Out. It's available on Tubi TV at the time of this recording, although it is region-locked to some countries outside of the US. And if you like that episode, you might as well watch the show. It shares an executive producer with the 2017 DuckTales reboot, Matt Youngberg, and you can feel it. As a Transformers fan, I can tell you that the vast majority of Transformers is utter garbage. Just stay away from it. But Animated is a legitimately very, very good show. But it was just wedged in a really weird spot on Cartoon Network and no one ever saw it. I also run a dedicated Transformers channel where I've pretty much got weekly content coming out. It was starting to take off, but then I released 24 videos on April Fool's Day and then the algorithm completely shut my channel down. I was estimated to reach 10K subscribers in June 2021. Now it's been pushed back to December 2022. So I'm just gonna shift my priorities over to this channel and cry. Consider staying with this channel. Follow me on social media and consider supporting me on Patreon. Subscribe or Murphy's Law will happen to you.